Good morning. How y'all doing? I'm going to try to hold this even though they tell me not to, because we're in RTO, so we're already thinking about breaking the rules, right? And we're in shed, so we're definitely breaking the rules. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for coming to the early service. When you wake up on Sunday morning and your wife says, do you want to go to the early service? And you think, oh my, no. And then they want you to sing at that early service on Sunday morning, and then your voice sounds like mine, right? I've got a raspy voice that I've been practicing for a while to make me sound more like an expert. So that's why I have this raspy voice. But bear with me as I have a little bit of laryngitis today. But thanks for coming in. We're gonna talk about rent to own, and this session is primarily targeted towards salespeople, shed manufacturer owners, maybe people in the rent to own industry, and others in the shed industry who want to know how to describe rent to own in a way that makes sense, and how to explain a contract in 2 minutes in a way that will help a customer go through the rent to own practice. So if you're here for anything else, you may want to run right now, and because there are a couple other sessions going on one I think on media, and another by my buddy Charles on how to be a wonderful salesperson. He's a great guy. If you can't make his one of his speeches, he's got a website called Shed Coach. But this one's on rent to own. Thanks for coming in. I'm a part of the NBSRA, the National Barn and Storage Rental Association, and you can stop by our booth. If you are a rent to own company, we welcome you to join our association. There's no fee to join, but we're just a group of rent to own companies trying to make the industry great, trying to educate each other and the rest of the industry in best practices in the rent to own world. My name is Tanner Leibee, and I'm the proud dad of 4 children, and my wife, Rebecca, and I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We love to do mission work. We spent this summer in Africa doing Bible storytelling, and I get to work with a great team of people at Upward Management Group. I got a couple of them here with me today. One of my best friends and founder of our company, Matthew Weaver, is back there to heckle me, and then make sure that y'all are dancing in the aisles. But just a great company I enjoy working with. I sold my first shed in 1996, and I showed this photo somewhere else, and I think it was an IT guy came up to me later. He was a young IT guy, and he started pointing out, the different technologies here that I guess he had never seen. But so that is a telephone that I'm talking on, for those of you who don't know that. And but I sold my first shed in 1996 with my dad in a parking lot of a pharmacy, and my dad's out there today. He was a minute ago, so you can go ask him how we got started. But we ended up having 4 dealerships, and in 1996, we didn't have rent to own. It was probably out there in the shed world, but we sure didn't have it, and it was not popular in 1996. And so we were limited to sell only to those people who had $3,000 in their pockets, which was the average price of a 12 by 20 shed right there at the time. And we were very limited in our sales. And do we have anybody in the room who is doing cash sales only, cash and credit card sales only? Maybe you're not yet doing rent to own, which is perfectly fine. But do we have anybody like that today? A couple people. All right. So that's how I started out, just doing cash sales only. And what I wish we would have had in 1996 was rent to own, because we could have expanded our orders and greatly grown our customer base. And so that's really what rent to own is about. Rent to own for you salespeople is about being able to produce orders for a lot greater demographic than before. Let me ask some questions. What is the percentage of rent to own for your business? So if you look at your book of business, whether you're a salesperson and you sell $500,000 a year, or you're a manufacturer owner and you produce $5 million or $50 million, whatever it is, what is the percentage of rent to own in the room? Can we get some shout outs? About 50 for you? 55? 75% is rent to own? About 60? About 70? 25%? 30%? I feel like an auctioneer, Dale. How am I doing? You're going to give a 50, going to give a 35, 35, 30? So we have various numbers here. I have some buddies that are as low as 12%. We had some people in the room who were 50%. There's some that are all the way up to 75%. But whatever number you're at, RTO in the shed and related world is not going away. And so it's really important for us to understand this product. And I'm in the RTO world now, and I'm stunned. I'm amazed how many people don't know how to explain rent to own well. It's half of their orders. It's 3/4 of their orders. It's 1/4 of their orders if it's 25%, and they can't explain it. And it just stuns me that we're walking around selling a product, and it's half of our entire livelihood, and we don't know how to explain it. It's really interesting when you think about it. Most dealers and salespeople don't know how to explain the product that they're offering. And so I think that's something to think about. In fact, for many of you, you might do more rent to own than you do painted sheds. Some of you, your painted sheds might only be 40% of what you do, and your rent to own is like 50%. And yet, if I asked you to explain the difference between painted sheds and unpainted sheds, we'd have an answer as a salesperson. And yet, can you explain rent to own? And then sometimes we start fumbling. So rent to own's here. It's a part of our lives. For some of us, it's half our orders, others less or more. And so this confusion is there, and I know it is. I'm going to tell you some stories how I know it is. But here's some of the confusion going around the rent to own that I'm hearing, real words. I'm not going to read those on the screen because I don't want to be recorded saying those words. But those are real words I've heard real people say regarding rent to own. And it's just amazing to me, especially this last phrase, to think that half of your orders, or maybe just 25% of your orders, are something. And then we look at the orders that way. That's just really kind of stunning when you actually stop and think about it for a moment. So we got to start asking ourselves, what's the narrative? What maybe it's just because we don't understand rent to own well, and that's what we're here to look at today. Maybe you've encountered some situations like this. So here's what ends up happening, and this happens every day in our office, because in our office all we do is rent to own. We are not an integrated company. At Upward Management Group, we only take care of rent to own. So we have a team of people who answer the phone, team of people who input information, and a team of people who help with retrievals. So you got the customer service department. Whether you're like our office, or you're integrated fully, or you're just doing just the driving or just the salespeople, you may have this story. So this is what ends up happening. No matter what business you're in, you are in customer service. Does anybody agree with that? Anybody? You can stand up if you don't agree. No, you don't have to stand up. So what happens is you got customer service, and then customer service, whether it's your call team back at my office or just your phone as a salesperson, it rings, and it's an angry customer. And I've polled my customer service team many times, and I've also listened to them on the phone, and I've been on the phone many times. And every time we have an angry customer, they use these words. And this doesn't mean it's true, but this is what they say. They say, "Oh, what you just told me was not told to me at the dealership." Or they use these words, "That's not what my dealer said," or "My salesperson did not explain that to me." And of course, there's all kind of memes about salespeople and about, whether we're lying when our mouth's moving and all that funny stuff we could laugh about. But the point is, the disconnect between rent to own and our customers happens primarily at the sales point. The dealer interaction has the most influence on how the customer views rent to own and therefore later views your business. I don't know if you know how much this matters, but what happens is a salesman fills out an order and they choose rent to own, and the order gets delivered. 1 month later, 2 months later, they get a bill in the mail. They call our office or another office like it, and they're all of a sudden confused about payments. And they're confused, for example, maybe on a $4,800 shed. They're confused on that $200 payment that's going to last 48 months. And the contract says, it does on our invoice anyway, it says contract balance remaining, and it stamps it on it. In that case, it would be approximately $9,400 remaining. And they're confused and they're angry. And, Americans don't like to be scammed. If you've ever gotten a phone call from a warranty service extension, then you know that you are like me and you don't like to be scammed. And our customers don't like either. So they use those words to some of my team and they say, "This feels like a scam because all my dealer ever told me was it's a $4,800 shed on $200 payments." That's all they ever told me. And you know what they end up doing? They end up leaving a bad review for somebody. And you know what's interesting? They don't leave a bad review for the rent-owned company. You'd think that's what they do. Guess who they leave a bad review for? The sales company, usually. Sometimes that is the builder, but just their most local interaction. Because they're not going to leave it in where's Salisbury, North Carolina. They're not going to leave it there and leave a review where they went to. So these angry customers are affecting your reviews as a salesperson. So in the next few minutes, probably more than 4, next few minutes, I'm going to help you with 3 very simple things. I want you to go out of this room proud of your product, proud of rent to own, and knowledgeable, number 2, about the product of rent to own that's half of your orders. And I'm going to teach you in 2 minutes how to explain the contract in a legal and knowledgeable way. And then I'm going to teach you a couple tips how to grow your business using RTO if you want that. And if you don't want that, that's okay. So that's what we're going to do. And that's my promise to you in this session. I had somebody tell me, "Tanner, I would never do anything on rent to own because I think it's a horrible, horrible deal." If you believe that, very likely you should not be a shed salesman offering rent to own. And those are strong words, but imagine going to a restaurant, seafood restaurant, specializing in seafood. They're on the coast, and you're excited because you went to the coast and you want seafood, and you ask the waitress, "What should I order? Shrimp or oysters or rockfish?" and they say, I hate seafood. It stinks, and I try to stay as far away from it as possible. I'm not saying that person should be fired, but how would your experience of that restaurant be? It would be downgraded quite a bit. It would be downgraded quite a bit. So doesn't mean that the waitress has to own seafood at her house. It doesn't mean that that has to be the only food she eats, but she at least needs to have some kind of understanding of seafood and at least a little bit of respect for that which swims in the sea so that she can be a better salesperson, which is actually a waitress in customer service. So if you think RTO is a bad product, and that's okay if you do, you may want to be open to changing your mind in the next few minutes. People tell me I would never get anything on rent to own. That's a horrible deal. And you may need to look into that theory and see what could change about that theory in your life to be the best salesman. So here's how I look at rent to own. Rent to own is a great product because it's convenient. That's my biggest selling factor for the first customer I deal with on rent to own. And guess who the first customer I deal with on rent to own is? Anybody have a guess? Somebody said it. Yourself, that's right. The reason rent to own is a great deal, a great product, all right? It's a great product for the customer. It may not be their cheapest deal to quickest ownership for that individual, but the reason it's a great product, a great tool is, isn't it amazing that a customer can go to a lot, see a beautiful shed that was made, that was crafted by artisan craftsmen, of whom we have a lot of in the room, and they can choose the shed. They might even be able to choose the colors. They might even be able to choose if it has a ramp or if it has a loft, if it has a window box. And then after they've made all those selections, they may be able to say, oh, you mean instead of $4,800 plus tax, I can pay $200 plus tax and sign this rental agreement and get delivery within 4 days? Isn't it amazing that we have a tool that enables a customer to get a shed delivered in 2, 3, or 4 days or weeks for a minimal amount down of maybe only $500 or $800, whatever your amount down is? And so you need to be proud of that convenience. That's what rent to own is. When Dad and I were doing it in 1996, we had to stall delivery until they had $9,600 if it was an expensive shed, instead of, and in that math, it would be a $400 payment in our office on a 48-month, and your office could be different. So that's amazing. Recognize that convenience. Many customers want that convenience of delivery very, very soon with a minimal financial commitment today. And so you got to be proud that you have a tool that enables that to happen. And then you got to, when you're proud of your product, you got to understand that that has a higher cost. Being able to walk out of your lot and get delivery scheduled for only $400 out of their pocket today is going to come with something, because life is all about trade, pros and cons. So it's going to come with a trade-off. The trade-off is it's a little more expensive. It's a little more expensive to get a shed delivered for $400 out of their pocket today than $4,800 or $9,600 out of their pocket. So to be proud of the product, you have to go ahead and embrace the higher cost of this convenience. We went to a steak restaurant the first night we were here, and on the menu was flank steak. And the flank steak was, I think it was $42. And, it had a whole bunch of words in there that I don't understand, like potatoes au gratin and all this stuff that they were going to do to the steak, and the chimichurri sauce that they were going to let the steak, run through before it got to my plate. But $42 was the price. I go to the grocery store pretty often, and I see huge packages of steak that would feed a family of 3, and the whole package cost $22. And yet this steak was $42, and it came out, it was pretty small. And yet I didn't tell the waiter what a horrible deal, what a scam. You lied to me because I was willing to pay a convenience fee to not have to wash the dishes. That's kind of one of the reasons I go to the restaurant. I don't know why you go to the restaurant, but that's a good reason for me. So embrace a higher cost for this convenience factor, and we do it all the time at restaurants and other places. So now, I told you 2 minutes, but I wrote down 6 minutes. Anyway, we'll do it either way. I need a volunteer. I need a volunteer to come up, and you're going to be a customer, and I'm going to rent you a shed. I'm going to sign you up for a rental contract, and I don't have any plants in the room, so I just need somebody to be a customer. You'd probably be a great customer if you sell sheds. Come on up. Let me grab one of these chairs. And we're going to get in trouble with our AV man because we're going to kind of walk away from this video platform, but I'll deal with that fallout in a minute. Let me grab one more of these chairs. Michael, can I have one more of these chairs? I should have brought some of those little sheds they had across from our aisle, those little ones sitting on there so you could pick out your shed. But let's just go through this. And are you able to do the slides for me so they can see what we're looking at on these contracts, Anna? Thank you so much. All right. Morning. All right. So just for the sake of this, I sell sheds. My name's Tanner. All right, Larry, what can I do for you today? What size shed you look for? All right. I forgot to tell you, my contract is set up for a 10 by 12. Tell me you want a 10 by 12. Larry, what size do you want? You want a 10 by 12. I'm glad you want a 10 by 12. That'll be big enough for you because your wife told me you're not allowed to have anything bigger. All right, so that's good, Larry. So now, Larry, our sheds, warranty, got everything you need. So that shed's going to be $4,800 plus tax. Now that includes delivery. Are you ready for that? Is that you ready to pay today? Do you have that? Okay, well, that's fine. Let me tell you about our other plan. We have another plan, and then it's up to you. So in addition to our cash plan, $4,800 shed, because of course you saw that price out there on the floor. We have a rent-own program, and the rent-own program, the way that works is it is a $200 payment for 48 months. And so what you would need to do today, I'm going to walk you through the contract, is you'll need to put $200 plus tax in the initial payment today, and then you'll be on a rent-to-own. Is that the way you want to go? It's not. It doesn't have a credit check. It's rent-to-own, so you're committing to a contract where you're renting this building with the option to purchase at any time or the option to opt out if you want to. That's right. That's right. If you go $200 a month, you'll own it on the 48th month. But we'll walk you through how you can purchase it early or return it. You want to go through with that? All right. Type, print, whatever you're doing. All right. Back here. Well, Larry, appreciate your patience there for a minute. I'm horrible with typing, and I'm horrible with computers. These things are really said to me at sales offices. Anyway, and here we are. Now, I want to walk you through the contract so that you understand the contract. And stop me when you have questions. So here's your copy. Ready? Let's walk through the contract. So the first thing I want you to know, Larry, is right at the top here. The company is called 123 RTO Company. So today, your contract is between 123 RTO Company and yourself, John Smith. There's their phone number. There's their email. Every month, when you're ready to make the payment, you're going to be making the payment right there to that phone number. You can't, and it'll be real convenient. They're easy to pay. You can call them, you can mail them, or you can put it on auto pay like my cell phone bill. All right, that's what that is. Next part of the contract that I want you to look at is the cash price. Of course, we've already gone over this. This shed costs $4,800 cash plus tax if you'd buy it today. And I want you to see how that describes it as well as 10 by 12. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the next important part of the contract that I want you to look at is the the rental schedule. And this is important here because I want you to realize that rent own is kind of interesting because you're actually on a month to month basis. And let me explain what that means. In simple terms, if you pay $200 plus tax every month, you can keep using the shed. You can pay off the shed. I'll explain how to do that. But if at any time you stop making the payment, it's their shed until you pay it off, purchase, or return it. So at any time they can come pick it up. So that's what point number 3 in my highlight says. It's a 1 month term. Be sure to make your payment every month. Does that make sense? Yeah, or technically, if you don't make your payment and you're a couple days late, they're going to contact you and ask you, do you want to keep renting it? And they'll come pick it up if you're not paying. The next thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at in detail what you're paying today. All right. So this explains to you the $200 that we just talked about, the sales tax, which you and I have to pay. We can talk about that later to our governors. But and then the liability damage waiver. Now, I recommend that to you. So what that is that is a coverage that's optional, but it'll protect you from any act of God. Rainstorm, hurricane, wind blows a tree on the thing, natural fire. If all that happens, you don't have to be liable for the shed. You could check with them later on. Oftentimes, because it's a rented shed belonging to 1, 2, 3, it may or may not cover it. So if I were you, I'd go this direction. But what do you want to do? So this one here is liability damage waiver. It's not insurance. It protects you from being responsible for that shed in any act of God. You got it. That's right, Larry. You want to add that? Are you okay with that? All right. So there's your total that you got to pay today, $222.56, and that's going to be the same total every month that you'll call 1, 2, 3 and pay. Next thing I want to make sure you see here is I think we did the initial payment, didn't we? Is I want you to look with me here about this cost because that's important for you to have all the facts. So the cost to acquire ownership of this rental is if you go ahead and pay out 48 months, this same amount, you will have paid a total cost of $9,600 after the full 4 years plus tax. So that's if you take the contract the full way out. Now, of course, that's more expensive than if you pay it here. Yeah, no, I get you. So that's the cost of stretching that payment out. Now, if you're like a lot of our customers, you may be paying it off sooner than that. Do you think you may end up purchasing this out any sooner? There you go. So I just want you to know the cost. There is a cost towards stretching this payment out 4 years. Many people compare it to their mortgage. My wife and I have a mortgage on our house. This is not a mortgage, but it's a financial tool that stretches those payments out. So there is a cost towards stretching this out the full 4 years. So we want you to be aware of that. Yeah, there you go. You can do that. Of course, that storage unit, do they ever let you own that? Okay, well, I don't know if I even want to come to that auction. You probably don't even want to either. But the good news with this is even though you're making those payments, and of course things do cost more when you stretch payments out. That's often how it works. You're going to get to own that shed. On that 48 month you own it. And then the other point I really want you to look at, and I want to make sure you have time for questions, is look at this very last thing. If at any time you want to purchase the shed outright, you can do so at 50% of the contract balance. Now, let me explain what that means in actual English. What that means is today, the contract balance is $9,600. That's easy. So half of that is $4,800. That's what you could have bought it for today. So let's just use an example of if you're running along and say you pay two your payments, right? $200 today, $200 next month. So now your contract balance is down to doing that in my head, but it's $9,400, right? And then all of a sudden, something happens in your financial life, and you get some money. They're going to take that $9,400 that's remain on your contract balance, and they're going to do it times 50%, and you're going to have a payoff that day of, let me do that right here for you, $9,400 of $4,700. That's right. So you'll. That's right. Yep. So it's all up to you of when you're going to exercise your purchase option. Okay. Well, we don't call it principal because this is a rent to own, but I get where you're going with. And yet, yeah. This RTO company, some RTO companies don't, but this RTO company does allow you to make some additional payments. So that'll help speed it up. Yeah. Of you getting to that purchase moment sooner. Exactly. Exactly. Because time is money. Longer time you take this out, it is going to cost you more. You are right about that. All right. Well, Larry, give me a call if you have any other questions. Go ahead and sign this, and then, of course, give them a call about. Oh, absolutely. Before supper time, Larry. Thanks, Larry. What questions do you all have in that? Say it again. Okay. This one. Yes. So your question about LDW. Now remember, LDW is different in every state, and it's different in every rent-to-own company how they do it. I can explain to you how we do it in our office. LDW in our office and in most states, what's allowed is to, and it's not insurance, but it's you're able to let them waive their liability for having to cover that shed in the act of God. So we run it internally. All right, we've got an account that we put that money into, and in case of a time like this, we're able to cover the liability of that shed rather than Larry. He's not on the hook for 4,800. Otherwise, he is, because just like when you rent a boat or rent anything, you're on the hook because it's in your possession at the moment. Yeah, that's how our LOW works. Could be slightly different in every state, slightly different in every rent-owned company. Yeah, that depends. Some homeowners insurance cover rented property, others don't. But that's what that is. In our company, he is. In the way we run our company, it's only act of God. Yeah. Others might sell other kinds of coverages that I'm not aware of, and as long as you check with your local code, that may be okay. Most of us in this room, me and the people I know, are not allowed to sell insurance because in my state you have to be a licensed insurance agent, and I'm not. Um, what I wanted to do for you there was just kind of give you a hands-on without a plant in the room. I actually had never met Mr. Larry till this moment. Of walking somebody through some of the most important things that they need to know. And so as I encourage you to know your product, use tools and use terms. Use tools to calculate those numbers. You should have a calculator on your desk, but hopefully one on your website, or maybe one that produces price tags for you, or maybe if you're not connected to the web, one in Excel that gives you formulas for how much is a $10,000 shed on rent to own, and what would be the early purchase option on that one. What's the percentage that I'm charging? The examples I gave you are simply my examples. You may have other percentages. There may be other percentages allowed or not allowed in your state, but know the calculations. So use tools. We have it on our website. Years ago, I built a little Excel sheet for myself so that I could explain it well to customers, and so that when they would sit there like Larry did and say, what about if I pay it off in the 10th month? I was able to put it in a calculator and look at that early purchase option. Customer often says pay off. We try to use the word early purchase option. And that runs me to the next thing of use terms to communicate the right understanding. It's important that your customer hears you say the word rental and return and pick up and monthly. Because if you say congratulations for the purchase of your shed, and then 3 months later, Larry ceases to pay, and then you call a driver and he goes and picks it up, Larry's going to say, why are you picking up my shed? And you told Larry it was his shed. You congratulated him on the purchase of his shed, and your terms misinformed your customers. So this is all part of the knowledge bank. Let's move into my final promise to you, and then we'll open up for questions. Some of you are already doing this. Do you know your demographic? Do you know who you're selling to? Do you know your customer base? And are you aware of the customers in your demographic that you're not selling to? Because your most lost customer is that customer who you're not speaking to. Let's think about this for just a minute. If this candy bar, this entire candy bar right here, was your entire portfolio, the whole candy bar, and maybe you sell $500,000 a month, maybe you sell $2 million a month, maybe you're a manufacturer a year. Sorry, not a month. Please do sell that a month. A year. Maybe you're a manufacturer, that does $10 million a year. Whatever you do, think about your percentages with me for just a minute, and then ask yourself, if rent to own is only a certain percentage of it, and it's a certain percentage of it, where can you grow? And I have people contact me all the time and say, I'm not doing much rent to own. How can I move the needle? And I had somebody actually ask me how they could move this needle. And I said, that's a horrible idea. And they said, I thought you were rent to own. I said, I am. And that's a horrible idea. I said, don't you like rent to own? I said, I sure do. Why would you ever try to slide this bar? That's a very bad idea. You want to grow this bar. So you want to think about this bar right here. This is your sales bar, $500,000 a year. Maybe it's $1 million a year. Maybe it's $10 million a year. You need to grow this bar. You need to ask yourself, where can you grow this bar? Maybe you can get some more cash sales. So the bar got bigger. Maybe you can get some more rent-to-own sales, which might be happening to you. So you need to grow this bar bigger. So now the bar is this big. Maybe your rent-to-own now went up to 40%, but that's okay because you grew the whole bar. So you need to ask yourself, who are you targeting in your advertising? So really quickly, I want you, and you can take a picture of the slide or I'll email it to you later if you email me, not for me to sell you something, just for me to remember to email you my slide deck, which I'll be happy to do. Who's your message reaching? I have been in the shed world since 1996, and I've learned that certain messaging reaches certain people. None of this is bad messaging, but it's just a certain type of messaging. So if I am driving along the interstate, I'm looking for a restaurant that says easy access, minutes off I-95, quick and convenient, maybe even order on your phone so my wife can and do the pickup dash or whatever you're doing. But when I'm at an NBSRA conference and I have time, I'm looking for a restaurant that says relaxed environment, and especially if my buddy Matthew's paying high-class dining, or whatever it is. So the messaging is different depending on the product. Some of your messaging might say elite structures, lifetime warranty, the shed of your dreams, fully customizable. Those are all great words, and I'm not a marketing genius. Probably other great words. It could be that those words are doing their job, but they're only doing their job to a certain demographic. If you want to expand your business, you should also add other words that would speak to that demographic. So not instead, but also. So think about two related but different messages. Messages for the tanners who are on I-95 looking for convenience, and then on a different day, messages for the types of tanners who want their high-class little meal once a year. Those messages of convenience and rent-to-own to grow that side of your portfolio might say things like convenient, fast delivery, which, by the way, if you're doing rent-to-own and it is a $200 payment, why are you waiting 10 weeks to deliver that shed? I have some questions about that, but we'll talk about that later. But easy payment method, alternative to mini storage, monthly plan, no credit check. These are messages that you should be having if you're trying to grow that side of your business. So I had some friends tell me, oh, we're not doing good. We only have 12% of our companies rent to own, and sales, I don't know what to do. So I went on their Facebook and I combed 2 years of ads, and their messaging was only one direction. On the other side, there's others who only message another direction, and it might be good for them to message on another highway to grow their sales in another area. So don't be tied to one message, because you might be able to grow your business through RTO when you see the message as important. We got about 5 minutes left. This is a time for questions and answers. We got a lot of smart people in the room who've been at it a long time. Mike can help us with some questions or answers. What questions come up to you in rent to own and explaining rent to own well? That's a great question, and I think it needs to be tackled because rent to own is not traditional financing, and we need to keep saying that. And yet, like he's saying, your customer base is viewing it as traditional financing. So I think we need to take the time to let the customer know and each other know this is a financial tool to being able to use a shed. It's not financing, and we need to offer alternative financing. You should be offering it at your sales lot so that people realize. Now you could go to the bank and get a 10% loan or whatever they're offering right now. But I think the messaging does need to be important to say this is not financing. It is rent to own, and it is a great way to acquire ownership. It's also a great way to just use it for a while. Very important messaging. Other questions? Yeah, I'm a person. One of our values is dignity in our office, and I don't like cloak and dagger. And when we do get yelled at in our office, it's because they tell us somebody hid that number from us. And in fact, in many states, that's actually illegal to do that, to hide that number. So, but going beyond what's legal, I believe it's the right thing to do to let people have all the facts. You're not selling this to a 3-year-old. You're not renting this to a 3-year-old, whatever the case may be. So letting that adult in the room know, hey, if you go the full years, this is what it cost. I appreciate that my bank did that to me. Personally, now this is a different type of financing called a mortgage. I signed up for a higher cost, my wife and I. We were okay with that, but we were especially okay that our bank disclosed everything to us. So I'm all about disclosure. And I can tell you from having to talk to a few of your customers on our call line for 4 to 5 years, because you only talked to them for a couple times. We talked to them for sometimes 3, sometimes 5 years. They're very angry when things are not disclosed. Question? Yes. Yeah. In fact, in a lot of states now, you actually have to print that number on the price tag. And you should stop by the NBSRA and pick up a card of a lawyer. It doesn't work for me. He works for himself. And as all my lawyer friends say, I'm going to charge you, is what lawyers say. But ask them what your price tag laws are, because you might be required to disclose it. But you also need to have memorized or on your Excel sheet payoff terms. Because do you know what the average length of rent to own is? Anybody raise your hand and tell me. Average length of rent to own. Somebody know? I'm not calling on my rent to own buddies. Very good. 22 months. Sorry, Philip. So did you know that the 24-month rental term, 36-month rental term, 48-month rental term, and the 60-month rental term, all of which we happen to utilize, you might utilize others, all have an average end date of between 20 and 22 months? That's when customers are either having them pick up or exercising their early purchase option. Knowing that fact helps you as a salesman say, hey, let me run you through a scenario of if you pay this thing off in 10 months. I often ask a customer, approximately when do you hope to pay this off? By exercising your early purchase option. They'll usually say 10 months, or I gravitate towards that. It's an easy formula for me. And then I let them know, okay, you are going to be it's going to cost you about this much more by doing it rent to own over this year than if you could shell out all the cash today. And then they say, I don't like that it's $1,000 extra, but rather have a $5,800 shed after a year than no shed today. And now they're fully informed, fully disclosed, and they go with it. But use your tools, your calculators, build an Excel, contact me. I'll let you know how to do it. If you want to. I don't charge. I just like helping people, because this is half your business. If you don't have a tool to figure this out, what are we actually really doing? Any other questions before we close? Israel. Every rent-to-own company might do that slightly different, but you're talking about a customer reserve account, which is legal in some states, not in others, but in the states that it is, you are definitely required to give that money back, because that is not an investment in the shed. It's simply a larger security deposit is what it is. And in some states, it thereby reduces your rental month obligation financially. So yes, they would have to give it back. Some rental companies may choose out of their own free will to put another shed there and continue the rental process. But that should be disclosed in the contract if that's the case. I just don't want to speak for all rental companies. We are going to have to wrap it up here. This is how I describe rent to own. Rent to own opportunity for a customer to use a product that they select at a financial commitment they can fulfill. That's what rent to own is. That's my name, my phone number. I'm at booth number 2, which is the NBSRA, or at booth number 54. That's my email. Feel free to give me a call. Contact Philip. He's also the NBSRA. Leanne Burkholder on the executive board. I saw her in this room earlier, and others. We're here to help, and we appreciate you. And I kind of have fun with sheds. I like sheds. So good to see all y'all. Thanks for coming out.